I think what we'll do is we'll start with a couple of polls. I'm Andres Fonseca. I'm the founder and CEO at Thrive. I'm also a consultant psychiatrist, and I'm going to be your host this morning. And with me, I've got Kaylin. Kaylin, just want to say hello and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone.
Very briefly.
Sure, Andre. So, hi, everyone. My name is Kaylin, and I'm a business psychologist at Thrive.
And I think the first thing that we're going to do is, if this works, there we go. Going to sort of do a few polls, Kevin and I, just asking people a few questions. Hopefully you can join that okay. Should be easy enough, and we should be seeing some answers when people start joining it in. So we'll give it a little while for people to figure it out. There you go. Somebody figured it out. I need a nice hot drink. There we are. So yeah, I mean, I was wondering. I've got 3 panelists with me as well. Claire, Despina, and Nick. I'll introduce them properly later, but I wanted to ask them first. How they felt this morning. What would be your answer to the poll?
Oof.
Definitely in need of a nice hot drink.
It's an early morning, isn't it? I had a call with Australia this morning with a business partner that we have out there, and we started at 6:30. So I am definitely in need of a nice hot drink. What about you, Despina? How are you feeling?
I agree. I need a nice hot drink. I've had 2 already, 2 coffees. I am ready and raring to go. But no, I'm really looking forward and excited for today. So I'm looking forward to being engaged and challenged. And I'm also looking forward to the weekend. It's my birthday in a couple of weeks, and we are celebrating with an Italian meal.
Oh, nice. Happy birthday. And Nick, how are you doing?
I'm good. I had an internal webinar just before this one. So
another early morning for you as well.
A fairly early start, been on my feet, so I'm feeling quite energized and challenged. So hopefully that'll last for the duration of this one as well.
For the duration of this one. So we've got another one. It's just trying to get a feel for what people want out of the session. I didn't ask you how you were feeling, Kaylin. How rude of me. I should have done that.
No, that's okay. I think I'm pretty much the same as everyone else, or the large majority. They probably need another coffee this morning. But other than that, all good, thanks.
Yeah, this one was about, what are people hoping to get out of the morning? There's something else as well. So you know what's going to happen if somebody answers something else. I'm going to ask them to put their hand up so that we can test their hand up function as well, and tell us what it is. There's something else, so maybe see if we can cover it. I thought the first 3 were basically what we're focusing on this morning, so hopefully we'll be able to answer those questions. Improve engagement is actually the theme of the talk this morning, of the talks. In general, they all circle around how to engage the workforce in ongoing well-being activities. I think it's easy to get an initial momentum, but is the sustainable engagement that can be a bit tricky. So it's good to see that a lot of people are finding that as the main focus for them as well. So yeah, we'll be certainly discussing all of those things, and our panelists are going to be telling us about their own well-being strategies and how they plan them for 2022. So there will be some learnings there, and of course learning about how to support mental health of our employees. I think that's in everybody's mind, particularly in the post-pandemic world. So it's going to be an important question that we all need to sort of think about how to answer for our workforces. So what I'm going to do now, I think we'll stop this one. I've got 31 participants. It's about half of you hopefully have figured it out, or you're not too shy. I haven't seen anybody say, I'm trying to look at my screen. got two screens going at the same time, and the last option is behind one of the monitors. So I was trying to sort of see if anybody's answered something else, but I don't think anybody has yet.
No, something else is.
No, something else is. Well, good. So we should have you covered. Very good. Let's go to the next one. And it's about a definition of well-being. And again, I think I'm going to run this by our panelists, see how they feel about what well-being means to them. In this one, I made it a bit different so that, yeah, exactly, so that people can answer more than one. So it's, you know, more than one may apply. Yeah, so just to get people's feel for their understanding of what well-being is. And some of the others might be related to well-being, but they might not capture well-being directly. So just a few options that I thought would make sense. And I think this one does have some people that have answered something else already. So we might get some, yeah, there could be lots of different answers. We've got somebody from the chat saying, I wonder whether any of the ones that put their hands up or that have answered something else on this one would be prepared to put their hands up, and I'll ask them to sort of tell us what it is that they think that something else might be that is also connected to well-being. But so before I do that, so there's a function to put your hand up. I hope people discover it. And if you do, yeah, so people are raising their hands, brilliant. And if you do, then I'm able to sort of get you to speak to the group. So that's brilliant. So we'll figure that out. So I'll ask you in a minute, and those people that raised their hands. So thank you for that. But I'll ask my panel as well. Oh, it was Claire and Despina realized that. I'm hoping that some participants also. Let me check the list. But let me ask you, Claire, what is well-being? What does well-being mean to you?
I think the biggest thing, so I've ticked some of the other things about positive mindset, connecting with others, but I think over the last 18 months to 2 years, I think it's about thinking about putting myself first in some situations.
Right.
That doesn't come easily to me.
No.
And yet I've realized that unless I do try and look after myself at times, then I'm going to make myself poorly and not be able to look after and do all those other things that I want to do around well-being.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that that's an important message for many people who find it hard to take time to look after themselves or feel guilty about taking time to look after themselves. I should be doing this, I should be doing that. When actually what you say is true. If you really want to help others, you need to start with yourself first, because otherwise you will not have the resources to be able to sort of support others. So it's very important. So prioritize yourself in order to prioritize others. Care after, look after yourself so that you can look after others. Despina, what about you? Do you have any?
I'm going to be honest, I was testing my raising hand, but I'll add to Claire. For me, it really is about being happy. And there's many ways that people can be happy. You might have a hobby, so it's taking the time out to do that. Mm-hmm. But it's very much for me, it's making sure that I'm happy and that I'm managing that, whether that's keeping physically fit, eating healthy, having a hobby. I really like singing. I don't know if my family like it so much, but yeah, it's very much making sure that I'm keeping myself in that happy space, that I'm really concentrating on my circle of concern. But I mirror what Claire said, especially in one of my roles, leading health and wellbeing at the NMC. You've got to look after yourself. If you don't look after yourself, you can't help others. And there's that saying, you would put, your gas mask on first before you would put it onto someone else for your way to help them. So it's very much important that number one is always looked after.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I see that the audience is focusing on function, so being able to meet all the demands of daily living. For them, that is well-being. So being able to function well is like the number one, the one with the most votes. So there's a theme about looking after yourself. There's a theme about being able to overcome challenges, and the new one that you said that is not on the list, which is about looking after yourself, making sure that you take time to look after yourself, making sure that you have activities that you enjoy and that you can engage in. And Nick, what about you? What's your take on well-being?
Very similar, actually. I was going to say I could have ticked all of them.
Yeah,
I was tempted to tick all of them just to make my life easy. But I think you're right. It depends. If I'm thinking about it from that kind of internal, about me, then I think I would give different answers to thinking about it from a what is it that I need in terms of well-being in order to be able to deliver to my family, to my work, and all of those things. So I think interesting. I wonder if it's that kind of finding that balance between those two aspects.
Yeah. So finding that life-work balance, or not necessarily life-work balance, but also well-being for yourself, well-being for others balance, I suppose.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things I've found certainly challenging over the last 18 months is disconnecting. When your workplace is your home place, is how do you build the practices that allow that separation? And I think that's that I suppose that's part of the challenge for all of us, isn't it? In that context of doing what you need to do for yourself without necessarily those kind of clear boundaries that we used to, or certainly I used to have when I commuted to an office space. Yeah.
So that work-life balance becomes more difficult when you're based at home. And there's no clear demarcation between a workspace and the home space. Absolutely, I think we've always struggled with that. Particularly now that a lot of people are hybrid working, that's going to be an ongoing challenge, I think.
Yeah.
Well, got Amy. Amy, do you want to tell us what your something else is, please? I'm going to. Hopefully, you're muted. So, don't know if you can unmute yourself, Amy. Give me a hand up. Oh, I might go to David in the meantime. Oh, David, do you want to?
Yeah. Hi. Good morning. Kind of
morning.
agree with everything that's been said. I think Nick, that's on a really good point. In fact, this morning I'm in the third or fourth room trying to get away from our toddler. So trying to juggle those things. And I think well-being has evolved for me as I've changed over the years. So if you'd have asked me 5 or 10 years ago, probably been a different response. So with everything we had to do, I think resilience is probably the one key. Is you can't stop things from happening, but it's actually having that, having all the coping mechanisms around you and knowing what it is that you need to get through it, and that could be very different from other people. So I think for me, lockdown in particular was those coping mechanisms were disabled, if you like. So the people that could help with the family, with the kids, for us to go and have a night out, or just to go and have a meal somewhere, or going to the gym, all these things that you took in your daily routine, that was just so, second thought of it, it just came naturally. All of a sudden realizing some of those weren't available. So I think just that resilience to just be able to know what's around, be able to pick yourself up and keep going in, know what's required for each stressful situation, really.
Thank you very much, David. David, who's your employer? Who do you work for?
So I work for Health Shield.
Health Shield. All right. Yeah. Very welcome.
So we're quite closely with you guys.
We work very closely with Health Shield. Well, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Thanks for letting us know. Thanks for sort of talking us through well-being, what well-being means for you. Okay, I think let me just sort this out. And I think if I can work. There we are. We've done a brief introduction to ourselves. As I said, I'm Andres Fonseca. For those that joined us a little bit later, I'm one of the founders at Thrive, and I've got Kaylin, who's one of our business psychologists. So we'll be talking. We'll be sort of hosting this morning. for all of you. The theme of the event, as we were saying earlier, is engagement with mental health solutions in the workplace specifically. So there were two of the polls that were exploring, well, one of the polls that was exploring what you want to get out of the session, and two of the questions, one was about mental health in the workplace and the other one was about engagement. So basically those are the central themes of this morning. So providing these resources is actually one thing, but getting people to engage in them is another. And sometimes it's about, we all settle into routines, and it's quite hard for us to motivate ourselves. We may have a gym membership, but do we actually go there? That's a different thing. And sometimes it's about not feeling like we should take time for ourselves, as Claire was saying. I think it's a mixture of those two, and I think the solution is also a mixture of, in our case, for example, from what we do, is how the technology works and whether it's accessible or not, and whether it's engaging or not. Improve that and make it as usable as possible. And on the other hand, there's a big component that comes from how the company adopt and champion whatever resources they have in terms of well-being, and how they promote them, and how they eliminate those barriers to access. Just briefly about Thrive, I think most people will know what we do. So we're a healthcare service that delivers its services through digital means, through an app. And the app does three things: there's prevention, early detection, and self-management of common mental health conditions. And we also have an integrated therapy service that works via the app, that is proactive in reaching out to people who screen positive for mental health conditions, common mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety. So our screening tools are validated screening tools that are used in clinical practice. If you screen positive, instead of waiting for you to seek help, one of our therapists reaches out to you, and we eliminate that first step that is very difficult for people to take, which is the help-seeking step. Instead of you needing to take that step and mustering the courage to talk to a therapist, we reach out to you and ask you to talk to us. Flip the script around a little bit. Our agenda for today is this. So I've just done that, so we're bang on time, and now we're going to have a discussion with our panelists. So I promise I will stop showing slides in a minute, so that the main focus of the conversation will be around the discussion with our panelists. So we've got Nick Holder, who's a senior director of talent at Snow Software, and he's going to talk to us about Snow's approach to the aftermath of the pandemic, hybrid and flexible working, and engaging the workforce with Thrive and other well-being initiatives, particularly in this new reality of hybrid working. We've got Despina Droshutis. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Despina, fingers crossed. Close, okay. I did my best, sorry. Who's learning and organizational and development business partner at the Nursing and Midwifery Council. She will describe the NMC wellbeing strategy going into 2022 and how they've promoted NMC Thrive to NMC members as well, but also other wellbeing solutions that they have. And finally, we've got Claire Bond from Staffordshire Police, and she will talk to us about the problems that blue light workers face and how these affect their mental health, and how to reach workforces who are very reluctant to seek help, I must say. And again, I think is a big component of what you were saying, not really being willing to, putting others before them. I think that's the culture. That's the culture with nurses as well. So I know that the NMC is the agency that regulates nurses. So they probably, because they're close contact with nurses, they probably know a lot about that as well. So Claire is going to talk to us about how to reach these very hard to engage members of staff in mental health programs, and what's worked and what can work in that sort of environment. So I think people can ask questions throughout. We have the Q&A function. It's one of the buttons that you should be seeing. You can also raise your hand, and we can sort of see that and get you to talk. And as everybody's been doing, you can put messages on the chat. So Kaylin, we'll keep an eye on that. Kaylin, yeah, and we'll bring any questions or any of that into our discussion. So Kaylin knows to interrupt me because I can't go on. So she'll know to come in and ask the relevant questions that the audience is putting to us. So I think what we'll do now is I'll get my panelists to actually properly introduce themselves this time for everybody. And I think I'll start with Nick. Nick, can you tell us about yourself and about Snow, please?
Sure, thanks, Andreas. So yeah, Nick Holder, as Andreas says, Senior Director of Talent at Snow, which means I concern myself day in, day out with everything to do with learning, with the human talent in the organization, well-being, engagement, all of those wonderful topics. And Snow's it's a business-to-business software provider. So we build and design software that we ship to customers all around the globe. We're a very globally distributed organization. So we're based across, I think, 19 offices around the world. We operate across multiple industries and all those different geographies. And we are in the process of trying to move at incredible speed. So we're transforming our technology at this moment in time. We're trying to grow the business towards an eventual offering to the public market. So there's an awful lot of things going on, and obviously all of that happening through the last couple of years and everything that we know has happened. So we're a business that is moving very quickly, that is very much about technology, but we're also a very human organization. It was one of the things that attracted me, made me want to come and join Snow, and I joined Snow in the middle of the pandemic, was it's a very human organization. So despite what we do, it's about the people.
Right, thank you very much. Despina, do you want to say a few words about yourself and the NMC?
Absolutely. So, hi everyone, I'm Despina Drushodis. Very long Greek name.
There you go.
I know, it actually means Virgin Mary. I have no idea. But D for short, please, so do refer to me as D today. But I am a Learning and Organisational Development Business Partner at the Nursing and Midwifery Council, so NMC for short, which I'll refer to us going forward. But I'm a qualified HR professional, over 10 years experience, and 8 of those I've actually brought that knowledge to the NMC, so lucky NMC. A key part of my role is really working with senior leaders to support and implement new ways of working. So that's about forming that bridge between employees and the senior leadership team, and really looking at whether we've got the skills, the knowledge, the capacity and the capabilities to meet our current organisational needs and that of the future. I personally am also a mental health first aider, and I also lead health and wellbeing at the NMC. So I'm very passionate around health and wellbeing, and very much personally for me, I've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. So I'm very much in it for the long run. A bit about the NMC, and we recently, I say recently, it's been about 2 years now, actually, 2-3 years, which we celebrated 100 years of nursing regulation. So we've been established for quite a long time, since around 1984. We are the only nursing regulator, nursing and midwifery regulator in the UK, so England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. And we've got a big ask, actually. So our vision is safe, effective and kind nursing and midwifery that improves everyone's health and wellbeing. So it's a big ask, but we are here and we are up for the challenge. We are a professional regulator, so we've got over 700,000 nursing and midwifery professionals on our register. So we've got that really big, important role to supporting everyone's health and wellbeing, that reality. What our core role here is to do is to regulate. So that's around promoting high educational standards for nurses and midwives. That's around making sure that we've got an eligible register that's up to date for people that are eligible to practice. And thirdly, where someone's fitness to practice might be raised into concern, and something I've got to say is it only affects less than 1% of people on the register, we will investigate those concerns. So that's a little bit about us at the NMC.
Thank you very much. And finally, Claire, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Staffordshire Police?
Okay, so my title is PC 953 Claire Bond. I've worked for Staffordshire Police for 20 years. I randomly ended up in Staffordshire because, as you can tell by my accent, I originally come from Kent, but I've really come to love this little county. It's quite a small force, and I quite liked the actual family feel that this force particularly shows. I was injured on duty at work 3 years ago, and was quite badly injured. That had me off work for about 18 months. And I worked extremely hard to try and get back into doing the job that I loved. And when I returned to work on the 1st of April 2020, as you can imagine, everybody else was starting to work from home. And I came back into a situation that nobody could really predict. And it was extremely difficult. I didn't particularly want to work from home because obviously I just had this time off. And it was then that I realised that not only the police force needed a lot of help, so did the public that we serve. So that's when my wellbeing journey really started to begin, of actually how do we make change at a time when nobody's actually sure of the future. And that's when I connected with what Thrive could possibly offer, and started a wellbeing journey for the last probably year of trying to change some culture around mental health and looking after yourself.
Very good. I think very timely, very important. I think I'll turn first to Nick. What I'll do now is I'll stop that. And let me ask Nick. Nick, I understand that Snow has been working extremely hard through the pandemic, as you said. Can you give us some context as to what you've gone through over the last 2 years? I think you joined about a year ago, or maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah, I joined Snow in August of 2020. Okay. So I think I was in that window after the first lockdown, just before the second lockdown. I almost made it to the office. I actually interviewed and started work without ever meeting my colleagues in person, and thought I was going to make it, and then it didn't happen. I had to wait months more before I met anyone. So it's only literally in the last few months I've begun to meet some of my colleagues in person, which is quite a strange experience. But yeah, so I guess the interesting thing about Snow is we're a technology business because we're global as well. Actually switching from being based in an office to remote working for our organization was probably the easiest thing that we had to do, because everyone's technology enabled. We were using Zoom and Teams and all of those tools already because of the nature of kind of conversations taking place across our internal audiences and customers worldwide. So that was easy. That didn't take a lot of effort. It was almost, a button was pressed, a few things were checked, and we were away and running. And I think, our initial impression as an organization was that it worked well. It worked seamlessly. People actually reported feeling more productive being based at home. The sentiment within our organization towards being home-based was really quite positive. And I think it was only over time that we started to see, all of those things that we really had no idea were going to materialize or transpire, because, we'd never had to do something like this before. So I think things like actually being a global business everyone's experience was different. So some of our countries, people were able to go to an office for much longer periods of time. There were far fewer restrictions, whereas in other places, people were literally locked in their homes. You know, we have teams in Spain and Barcelona, and actually some of the younger members of our teams doing business development, and they were literally locked in one-bedroom flats, sitting on their beds, working for weeks at a time, without the ability to go anywhere. So I think the experience was really, really varied across our organization. And I think what we've started to see is how that started to manifest. And I mentioned it earlier, that, you know, whereas when people went to an office, you'd get that, you know, I found myself, you'd leave the house, I'd get on a train, I'd travel to an office. There was a clear sort of separation between home and work.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, you know, my commute to work was walking down a set of stairs and through into a different room in the house. So I've found it, and many other people in our organization have found it as well, is people started working longer, almost unintentionally, without realizing that the hours started to creep. And some people, you know, I'm fortunate I have a space where I can come and work, which is separate from where I live. But many of our people were sitting on a sofa, sitting on a bed, sitting at a kitchen table, working. So that blurring between those lines really, really had an impact. I think one of the things I was super conscious of, we noticed as well, is there was a real impact on women in our organization, particularly mothers who, you know, kids are at home. Oftentimes they're the primary carers, and that expectation of they were having to still do the day job, and actually people were starting to expect them to be available for longer hours, and yet they were juggling family responsibilities and all of those pieces as well. Absolutely. So there was all of that. And then I think one of the things we've only started to see, you know, 12, 14, 15, 18 months in, is you start to lose sort of the dissipation of that sense of belonging to a team and an organization starts to fracture. You know, we all did the Zoom quizzes and the enforced fun type activities. Sorry, I'm just showing my own biases there around that stuff to keep people connected. But I think the reality is you lose some of that, the impromptu, the ad hoc, just the conversations that you have. It's almost, you know, unplanned conversations don't really happen in a virtual space. And I think we really started to see that happening. And it's been that, you know, a very gradual and gentle sort of ratcheting up of that sense of stress, pressure, perhaps feeling like things just aren't quite right in the organization.
And how have you been? So you probably learned quite a lot about how to adapt to that. So now that things are changing, I suppose that everybody's not a lot of people are returning full-time to the office. I mean, in some cases, people do, and for example, in the case of the police, I think a lot of people will be returning to the office for obvious reasons. And the people that the NMC regulates, you know, the nurses, they haven't left. They were always going to work. But how have you adapted? How has the organization adapted, particularly bearing in mind how widespread geographically you are to this new way of working?
I'd love to stand here and say we've figured it out, we've got the answers. I don't think we have. So we're having really interesting conversations at the moment. The conversation around, you know, what will be our post-pandemic ways of working, and even that as a conversation is quite fraught, because people are saying, well, am I going to be expected to go back to the office after Christmas? And the response is having to be, well, that depends on what's going on where you are in the world. Because trying to help people see that actually until, you know, we're thinking in our different geographies of this is, you know, whatever normal looks like, we're still in our pandemic ways of working, which is remote first. So just that part of the conversation has been quite fraught. We're having lots of conversations. We don't envisage ever having people back in the office 5 days a week. I just think that's a non-starter now, because people have recognized the positives and the value of that flexibility. So the conversations we're having at the moment are, okay, so what's the what's the logic? Because we recognize that flexibility is a wonderful thing, and we want to maintain all of that really positive stuff for our audience. But we also know that feeling like you belong to the organization is also important, and in-person stuff is valuable.
Mhm.
So we're just working through that. Well, what constitutes, a good reason to go to an office?
Of those two? Yeah. I think it's a challenge for us as an organization.
Yeah.
We're going through a similar thing, and we have the ability for people to go into the office if they want. And the majority of people opted for like 3 days a week, 4 days a week model. With some people wanting to remain at home and some people needing to be in the office all the time.
Yeah.
So it's adapting to that. That is a real challenge.
And I think we're very much taking the view of it should be activity led. So going to the office, the very simplistic line I've been sort of sharing with people is, if you're going to go to an office to sit in front of a Zoom camera,
don't.
Why would you go to an office?
Absolutely.
So if you're going to an office, it's because you're going to be doing something that you can't do, or that is, doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's, and actually in just the last few days, what's really interesting is many of our teams are saying, well, we've got geographically dispersed teams. So even if we were in an office, if we were having a team meeting, it would be over Zoom. So actually flicking our focus a bit and saying, well, this is potentially more about the inter-team. So not within your team necessarily, but across all of the different teams and areas of our organization, that collaboration, those kind of high value moments that we always used to get by the water cooler or the coffee machine or whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got this that I really enjoyed, this model with your wellness dimensions that you're working towards. Could you tell us about that model, how it works?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. David, I think, sort of tapped into this earlier with his comment, which is what's important to some people is less important to others. So I think what we've been trying to do is be very inclusive. So trying to ensure that we're doing something that everybody can engage with. So we've been running, we've had kind of exercise campaigns. We had a kind of a walk of the world type campaign where we had people tracking, all the cycling, running, walking, etc. that they were doing on a week by week basis to kind of plot our progress as an organization around the world. We've been doing things like that. We've been doing mindfulness fikas. So, sorry, fika is a very Swedish term, which is Snow's heritage, which is that kind of fika is almost like a coffee break, an informal coffee break. So we've been doing mindfulness sessions that are open to people. We've been kind of sharing really clear practices with people of saying, okay, in terms of owning your spaces, having deliberate practices at the end of a day to step away from a machine, maybe actually close your laptop, move things off a table, clear that space so you've got that clear delineation between your work and home time. But really just trying to get people to do what's right for them. We worked with a wonderful lady called Dr. Sophie Bostock, who's a sleep scientist who came and did some sessions for our group, our organization as well. So we've been doing lots of different things to try and tap into what works for different people. And of course, obviously, within that, Thrive has been a really key part of that for us as well. And the element for Thrive and for Snow was a lot of the things that we're doing are kind of organization-led. And we wanted something that wasn't organization-led, that was just for the individual, that was completely separate from Snow, that they could use in whatever way worked best for them. And I think that's been really, really critical.
And what are your, it is something for everybody. So you've got a few things on this dimensions. What are your current well-being initiatives at Snow? Apart from Thrive is one of them, but you mentioned others. Well, can you give us like a picture?
Yeah. So we've got so we obviously Thrive is there as a service available to our tribe. We've got like I say, we are continuing to do the mindfulness fikas. So that's meditation and movement. I take one half of that, and then I have a colleague in the US from within the business, actually within our finance team, who does mindful movement sessions. So those kind of just run on a regular basis. They're open to everybody in the organization. We're also, myself and my colleague Emma are running lots of Fika and Learns, so webinars which are around actually quite pointed topics. So things like habit building. So I suppose not necessarily what you would consider perhaps directly wellness, but almost thinking about, well, if you want to have good wellness habits, there's a deliberateness to that. So we're kind of sharing best practice ideas around that. We're also trying to do things which are about reducing meeting overload. I don't know if other people have experienced this, but we've had, meetings have just mushroomed over the last couple of years. You have a gap in your diary and someone wants to fill it. So we're working very deliberately on how do we actually make sure that meetings are happening for the right reason, in the right way, that they're structured. So we're trying to create space for people to do the other things. And we're just about to launch another exercise campaign pre-Christmas. So we have a group in the organization called Sherpas, who are our kind of champions within the organization to help push the idea of kind of some of those group activities as well.
When you launched Thrive in January, what was your approach to launching it? I understand that the uptake was very good initially.
Yeah. So there was a few things that happened. We had a really clear communication campaign. Timing was perfect because we did it as we did our company kickoff for the year. So we had a section in that event. So pretty much every member of the tribe was there in attendance at that event, and we were able to share with them the application. We also we ran a trial, and we used the champions from our trial to kind of get messaging out as well. So we then ran webinars, as you would expect, for leaders. So actually for our managers, saying, look, this is a tool for you, and it's a tool for your people. And we use the champions to kind of share their experience of how they were finding it as well. So it wasn't just a P&C, people and culture thing, it was a thing from within the business. We've also kind of provided lots of resources, just really simple PDFs on how to engage with it. I think the other thing that really helped us was at the time, and sorry, Andreas, but you were running a friends and family offer.
Yes.
So when we launched, we were able to say, okay, this isn't just for you. This is also something you can offer to your loved ones as well. And I think that was really, really helpful because that completely set the message that this was not a snow thing. It was for every individual.
Okay, that's a very interesting point that I hadn't thought of. So it sends a different picture. It's not to monitor you.
Exactly. This is not about us tracking what you're doing. This is just for you. And being really clear, our messaging was really clear that snow gets very little insight or data into what our tribe is using the tool for. Yeah,
absolutely. And it obviously, when you first launch it, it tells off what are your plans to keep it going, because that's the thing where we see organizations and we have to work very closely with them to keep the momentum going. What are your plans to try and do that?
So we have seen a kind of a tail off from that initial surge. So there's a range of things we're doing now. We are actually with our managers and our people leaders. This year we brought in a really comprehensive leadership development program. It's one of our key focuses is developing our people leaders, and one of the areas of that development program is, we call it the 7 summits. We love a snow reference here. So one of the summits is Punkak Jaya, which for us is the whole Yeti, which is about wellness and how we do that. So for our leaders, there's just an ongoing emphasis of what do you need to be doing for yourself, and actually what do you need to be doing with your team. So that's one element. We have, as all companies, we have our snow safe, so the kind of compliance and mandatory training piece. And actually in Q1, our focus is on health and safety, but we're focusing on health and safety and well-being. So we've kind of expanded the remit of that to be about more than just, is your desk at the right height kind of conversation, but expanding into the wellness lens. We've also baked it into our onboarding. So day one, we have a fast start and kind of new members joining our organisation, get an overview of the tool. And we're actually just exploring how we get that to our new team members before they join.
Okay.
So actually, as part of pre-onboarding, offering them the Thrive service. Because actually, if you think about it, joining a new organisation, particularly at the moment, is quite fraught. There's a lot of stress in that. So what better moment than to have access to a really, really good tool than in that moment when you need it. So that's something we're trying to figure out the best way at the moment to make sure that we can get that available to our new tribe members.
But there's some very good ideas that I haven't heard from anybody before. So yeah, excellent. I think I'm going to turn to the spinner now. I'm just trying to figure out how to make there's a way in which I can put the spotlight on the spinner. So I'm going to do that.
The spotlight? Oh, God.
There you go.
Thank you.
So the NMC has also experienced significant changes throughout the pandemic. What has it been like for your organization, following on from what Nick was saying?
Yeah, just quickly on what Nick was saying, I really like the idea of the onboarding aspect, allowing people to have access to it. And we actually had an offer by Thrive, which was for people that have left the organisation, and it was during the pandemic. So we would offer them 6 months, continued use with another code of Thrive as they left the organisation. And some of the feedback that we got from exit surveys, that was very person-centred, very humanistic, and a really nice way to leave the organisation. So I will take away the onboarding point. For us, what was it like for the organisation? Busy. I think everyone would say the same, but we didn't prepare for a pandemic, and actually we couldn't sit and plan to prepare for a pandemic. Part of that purpose that we've spoken about was that kind and effective nursing to support everyone's health and well-being. It was more than important now that all hands were on deck. One of the things that we had to deal with straight away was we already had a register, and I said earlier, over 700,000 registrants, but there was also always already resourcing issues. So how possibly would we support a pandemic? So one of the things that we reached out to professionals on our register, so that was actually an off our register, was students that were currently undergoing their nursing programs or that were at the end of it that wanted to come onto a temporary COVID register to support the pandemic. We also reached out to registrants that had retired. We need that support, we need hands on deck, we need that resource. And we had over 40,000 registrants that came back onto a COVID temporary register to support that pandemic, and are still continuing to support that pandemic because of resourcing issues. One of the things I touched on earlier is, yes, we set the standards, we support professionals on our register, we are a public organisation, so that's supporting people that engage with our services, you, me, our members of our family. But what we saw actually is with a pandemic, we also had an increase in cases, so where things had the potential to go wrong. And for us, the impact that had on our colleagues, we are a public organisation, so our hearings, when a registrant's fitness to practice is called into question, and it's only less than 1% of the register, but still a big amount of work, those public hearings still have to continue. So that impact on our colleagues, especially those public-facing roles, was a lot of the feedback that we've got. Caseloads are extremely high. Going to what Nick said, work-life balance. How do I disconnect? I'm in a hearing all day, 9 till 10, 9 till 6. I then have to get off and work, and I'm not getting off of work, and I'm starting work at 8, and I'm not finishing until 8, 9 o'clock. So we really have to delve into how can we minimise the caseload without dropping the cases, because we had to do that job. I think for us, what was really important is what is that support that those individuals, so that's our employees, people that are on the register, people that engage with our services, what is that support that they can engage with? So we've got things that we've put in place like emotional support lines for people that are undergoing our processes, and we implemented Thrive, and hopefully I'll touch a bit later on our digital kind of landscape, because by implementing Thrive, a lot of our other kind of support tools have moved into more of a hybrid kind of virtual environment approach, because again, we're in Northern Ireland, we're in Wales, we're in Scotland, and we've seen a lot of engagement rise with our support tools. Going back to what Nick said, and we still haven't got it right, and we've still got a long way to go, is, you know, how do you set those boundaries? You know, what we've seen is an increase in flexible working, compressed hours, and some of the conversations that we're going to have going forward is about what does job sharing look like, you know, part-time working, whatever that might be.
Right.
But yeah, it's our next kind of phase is where do we set those boundaries? You know, how do we reduce the pressure, reduce the stress, reduce the workload, and really make sure that we're fit, productive and effective for the future. So it has been challenging. We haven't stopped. We're still not stopping. But we've got to do what we've got to do.
Absolutely. And you obviously you have a range of services available that you've described to the people that work for the NMC. What are your plans for 2022 and beyond in terms of engaging? You know, you have those facilities now. The challenge is getting people to use them and staying healthy and actually sort of benefiting from them. You know, what is your plans for 2022 there?
I think a lot of what we're saying now is preventative tools. We don't want people to get to a stage when they're feeling unwell.
Mm-hmm.
So things like Thrive, our employee assistance program, our reward program, are all based around making sure you continue to feel happy and healthy at home and at work. We've got quite a big task to do. So we did have a lovely strategy before COVID took place, and that was thrown out the window.
Right.
Plan 22 is really at the moment, we are pulling all of our data together, and actually we're doing an internal evidence review. What are people engaging with? Why are they engaging with it? How is it helpful? And then we're doing that internally and externally to really shape what is it that the organisation wants us to focus on? Where are the risk factors? Are there particular groups that are more at risk? So I spoke earlier about public-facing roles. But again, we really want to unravel our policies and our processes, making sure that actually, do they support a healthy environment? You know, do managers feel accountable and able to really talk about flexible working, supporting mental health, you know, supporting physical well-being? We've also ensured that actually people are kept fit and moving at work. So we offer cycle, you know, a bike offer, and it's discounted. You can pay it off monthly, quarterly, whatever works for you. And actually, we've seen an increase since people have been working at home. They're getting out, you know, they're cycling, they're using reward schemes such as that. I guess for me, we want to really, really drive that preventative approach. You know, it's your accountability to take kind of ownership of your physical and mental health. What we're here to do is really support you in that. You know, and one thing that we're ensuring that we're doing is the tools that we have in place are not only there to support people on our register external, but for our employees and your family. They're very much based at, you know, please do share these with your family and friends.
You've got an interest in data gathering and looking at the effects of the activities that you do, and you've got this slide that talks a lot about data and a lot about sort of the policies that you were talking about. But I was wondering whether what is your success criteria for your plans, you know, when you implement the well-being solution, and how do you measure them internally?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, everything that we do has to be evidence-based. You know, it's public, it's reviewed, it's scrutinised. All of our decisions are evidence-based. It's the same for health and well-being. What we want to do is take a deep dive every 6 months, especially now we're coming out of a pandemic. And that's really looking at data such as any grievances around health and well-being, what our staff turnover rate is saying, what exit interviews are saying. So what are people saying that relates to health and well-being? What is the uptake of Thrive? What is the recovery rate? You know, the uptake of occupational health. What are our stress risk assessments saying? And we want to create one clear picture that we can really start having that discussion about. And I think what's really important for us is that people see that we're doing something. And it's really about, you know, having a plan in place that we're regularly reviewing and really ensuring that that data is feeding into what we do. I think what's really important, and some of the work that we're actually doing with Thrive, is engagement for us is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we're putting a big data pool together, but actually what are colleagues saying? So we are working with Thrive on designing these focus groups for colleagues to say, this is our data. Does it mirror what you think? Is there anything that we're missing? Do we need to do everything differently? And co-collaborate and design that strategy. Because if we can get people engaged right now, then we know we're going to have a successful strategy. Going back to this slide, and I think it's really important, for us it's making sure managers feel confident about having the conversations about health and wellbeing. So that's making sure that that's embedded in induction, you know, management fundamentals, leadership development, and really accountable and able to make decisions about people's physical and mental health. One of the things we did implement, and I know one of the things we did implement was wellness action plans, and some of the feedback that we did get and what we'll be embedding more next year is we don't feel confident in actually having conversations about health and wellbeing. So can you provide us a framework to do that? So there is going to be a lot of work 2022 focused on really making sure that our organisation feels able to be open, transparent about anything that's affecting their physical and mental health, and then any kind of managers and our senior leadership really showing the right behaviours, that we're kind, we're caring. You know, we do want to look after the people that work with us. So we've got quite a lot to do, but at the moment it's very much the data crunch stage, and that's really going to inform what that 2022 strategy is going to be.
And you're a very ambitious organisation that wants to challenge itself. I understand that you're going for the London Healthy Workspace Award, and I want to understand what motivated you to take on that challenge, and why is that important for the organisation. And perhaps a larger question is, how is focusing on awards like this useful for your strategy and actually I think for engagement, but I don't know, I'll let you answer.
Yeah, absolutely. London Healthy Workplace Award was just one I identified, mainly because I want to work with the mayor. It's not really. But for us, one of our values is being ambitious. The rest are kind, fair and collaborative. But one of our values is about continuous improvement. So yes, we're doing a big data pool. Yes, we want to look at our policies, look at leadership development, risk assessment, stress. But where do we benchmark ourselves? Where do we have a blueprint? Where do we, you know, set those success messages externally? And that's really why we want to go for an award. So the award for us is very much the end game. And yes, we want to promote it on our websites, you know, internally, externally, and really link that to our kind of purpose. You know, we say we're here for safe, kind and effective care that supports everyone with health and wellbeing. Well, it's at the top of our agenda, and that's really, really important for us. But there's a number of reasons why we want to use that blueprint. So we want to really explore what best practice is in regards to leadership, policies, engagement, you know, initiatives, physical and health and wellbeing, you know, those stress risk assessments. So it's really kind of, let's set ourselves up for the best success, and let's do it linked with best practice. So whether it's London Healthy Workplace Award or another award, watch this space, because we will be getting that award.
Very good. I mean, anything that we can do to support you in that endeavor, please let
Thank
us
you.
know. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think it focuses the attention of the staff, and also I think promotes engagement. In, you know, largely, you know, if you've got that competition to focus on, I think that will elicit a response from the workforce.
Yeah, and one of the things, sorry, Andreas, that we've seen is talking about tools now that are preventative. We've seen an increase. So we've got over 280 users on Thrive. We've seen an increase in our occupational health. We've seen an increase in our employee assistance program. So people are now engaging with tools when they're feeling good, and they're able to really identify what does make me feel not so well and what support do I need to put in place. So we'll continue to kind of build on that in 2022.
Brilliant. I'm going to show a video that Claire asked me to show first before I start asking her some questions. So let me do that now. And you should all be seeing that, so I'm going to play it now.
Do you really want to be a cop?
Stand up for this, honey, search you, all right?
Yeah, it's all right.
You stand for hours in the rain protecting a crime scene.
Hello, are you all right? Who's this? Which car?
You'll work days and nights and probably miss a few of the Bairns' birthday parties.
Did they just drink you about the night, like?
You'll spend longer on the paperwork than you do on the beat. You'll be the one walking into a darkened building, which might or might not be empty. You'll be the one getting a mouthful of abuse from the very person you're there to protect.
Sit back in there now.
But it's who we are.
Stay there now! John! Get down! Get on your front.
It's about taking on the gangs and the dealers. It's about being the first on the scene.
Yeah, fella, stay there. I'll chuck this to you.
And knowing just what that means to the
It's
victim.
more important that you stay still, all right? Right, just keep holding my hand.
It's about running towards danger, because someone has to.
Get down!
It's about always expecting the unexpected.
Probably 42 tonner has gone into the back of him while he's been on the hard shoulder.
It's about making a difference,
50% of my work these days is mental health related.
a real difference.
You all right? How are you doing?
Being there for someone when they really need you.
All right.
Saving lives. Changing lives.
Come on, that's it, good lad.
One emergency at a time.
Need to get dressed for bed, do you think? Or...
And, for all its flaws,
That's enough, that's enough.
there really is no other job like it in the world.
Stand by for a decamp. I think he's going into a dead end on the bike.
Right, like I say, you're detained for the purpose of a search. I'm going to be looking for a knife.
So, I'll ask you again. Do you really want to be a cop?
That's quite an impactful video. I mean, when I was watching that for the first time, I've been in some situations like that myself as a doctor working alongside the police. As they say in the video, a significant percentage of an officer's time is spent with people who are not very well, and they do require your support. And one of the comments was that officers regularly get abuse from the very people that they're trying to protect. And as a psychiatrist, I can definitely relate. When people are extremely unwell, that can happen. It's obviously their illness is not their fault, but that doesn't make the job any easier. However, I think there is a difference. I think for me, having a deep understanding of the illness helps me not to take that abuse personally, as I know they're frightened, desperate, and not able to regulate their own emotions, all due to the illness that they're going through. And I think it must be quite hard for officers, and I think it's very difficult not to take it personally. Even trained people tend to take it sometimes very personally when somebody's unwell and hurling abuse at them. What are some of the challenges to try and get people, blue staff, so blue light staff and volunteers to focus on their own health? I think you were talking about that before, particularly in the light of all that they have to sort of go through, like we're seeing in that video, Claire.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for all staff, and I don't just mean officers.
Yes,
obviously,
absolutely.
Video,
yes.
You know, you saw a lot of frontline police officers with what they deal with out on the streets, but also behind them is a team of people that are just as important and probably get the first calls come through, and then how they follow that stuff up with. So it's about the ripple effect of each of those instances creates workloads along the line for us to then be able to get them the help that they need. With the video, and I know it's not Staffordshire Police's, but it was so impactful of the kind of things that we deal with every day. And when we talk about well-being, this has been this has been going on for some time, even, you know, pre-pandemic times, etc., of the stresses that kind of people have to deal with within the police every single day. And it's how do they deal with these different instances, and then how do they then move on and I suppose make a break between what's work and then what's reality for them in their own personal life. And a lot of what goes on behind the scenes is perhaps what takes over and makes us not perhaps as visible as we once were, and the public want us to be, and that we want to be as well. The stresses placed on us to get safeguarding right, and making sure that we've done the correct thing, and we've spoken to partner agencies before we go off duty, that kind of thing, that has increased over the past few years. As somebody said back in that video, you know, a big percentage of what they deal with is with mental health.
Yeah.
And so we're being asked to look after the public that we serve's mental health. And I just think that we need to then back that up with supporting the staff's mental health and how to distinguish the two so that we are in a good place to continue to look after, you know, the types of jobs that we're going to go to, and the people that we are going to come across, and potentially change the course of their lives.
Absolutely. You were saying something before that I wanted to sort of ask you a little bit more about, which was obviously the people that work, you know, for the police or people in healthcare as well. They have a great commitment to their job, and you know, the job is very meaningful, and they also have a natural instinct to put others first, and sort of put themselves second.
Yeah.
What are you doing internally to try and change that culture, to try and get people to realize that what you were saying at the top of the morning, which you were saying, you know, it's important to get people to realize that they have to look after themselves. What have you done in terms of trying to change that culture internally?
So I don't think that we'll ever want to change the culture completely, because
no, of course not. No.
that's what people tend to join the police force for. You know, it's to make a change, unite people. And myself, when I first joined, thought I could change the world, and I would make all these you know, impacts on people, etc. And you realize pretty early on that actually that's never going to be the case. But if you can change one or two things, that the ripple effect of that could be enormous. I think it's been probably coming for some time that we need to start concentrating on staff's mental well-being just as much. And I think, if I'm honest, probably the pandemic has enlightened that, because you know, I'm listening to Nick talking about working from home, and even a percentage of Staffordshire Police did start to work from home. But if you can imagine that we're not really a role that you can completely work from home, it's impossible. So it's trying to manage how everybody was feeling through the pandemic, because we, you know, a lot was being asked of the police force around legislation, around how we adopt our working strategy, when at the back of a lot of staff's mind was that they were scared, and they had families that they had to think of as much as going to work and continuing with a normal duty as such.
Yeah.
So I think that really came into play, that actually we need to come together and start working out how we make sure everybody's looked after, keep them healthy, less sickness, less, more of a trying to keep them together as a team spirit as such, because that's what I think a lot of police officers do come in for. It's a team spirit. They work a lot for each other, but they are very bad at putting themselves first, and that's quite a hard habit to break. So more than anything, I think we're trying to get in at the very start, so that we're starting to recruit a lot more staff now, more than we have done for some years, to try and get into an understanding of well-being from the very outset. So from students to start to try and look after themselves and find a way of how they can start combating some of the things, such as sleep, lack of sleep, anxiety about what jobs that they are going to. And the difficulty we probably have had is that the students that have started in the last 18 months to 2 years had to do a lot of their learning virtually, and to then try and send them out and start their jobs to jobs such as the video showed going to is quite impactful. I think that if we can show them how supportive we are as a police force for them, just as much as the public, then we've made a start with the students. Then we've got to start really working on people who have been within the force for some time, because already habits have started to form of how their coping strategies as such, that perhaps need altering.
Yeah, need adjusting to an extent.
Yeah. And I think police officers as a whole to try and encourage them to start thinking about themselves first and giving them tools of how to do it. It's quite hard work. They are kind of quite set in their ways of, this is how we've done it for this long. Why would we
change it? Yeah. I mean, you wanted me to show not just the police officers, but the fact that you also look after your admin staff, your support staff, and everything else. But you have this action, this wellness action plan that you have adopted internally. So just wanted to sort of, perhaps if you could say how you're using it at work and what's been good about it.
Yeah.
Despina mentioned it as well, that they're using it at the NMC.
Yeah, so we've begun really getting together a great wellbeing team with lots of people from different directorates all over the police force to get together to give us a wider understanding of what wellbeing means to individuals. So what wellbeing means to me could mean something completely different from someone else within the police force that I've probably never even met. And so it was kind of, we wanted to have an open book approach to saying, what does well-being mean to you and to your team, so that we could start to approach from different directions, really. And listening to Despina, I hope we can keep in touch, because I would love to nick some of her ideas of how she's approached her team, because there's still probably work to be done, but we're definitely starting to talk about gyms and fitness, and how we can help officers and staff try and become a lot more understanding of their own fitness and well-being, nutritional plans. We've got a great team that when officers have to go for their yearly medical, as I will explain it as a medical, that we go and make sure that everything is that you are able to go out and patrol. They talk about nutrition, they talk about gym and fitness, and any weight loss. We've got a great occupational health team that help with immunisations and flu vaccinations, and a lot around well-being and the reasonable adjustments
yes,
we need to take into account now more than ever. But we're all, a lot of individual areas do running clubs and walking clubs, which is what Despina talked about again, is, trying to get people to have fun whilst they're doing these things. And that mattered a lot during the pandemic. Sleep programs, but not only that, we've been trying to do a lot of welfare van visits to stations, to try and encourage people to come and speak to occupational health, have their blood pressure tested, and all that, the different things of that, but just about trying to gauge what well-being means to them and what we can perhaps start to implement. And it was quite nice, because people were engaging with us when perhaps they wouldn't have if we hadn't actually physically gone out and seen them.
Yeah, I think that's very important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing it in person.
Yeah.
Talking to them about mental health, I mean, because talking to them about getting their blood pressure checked might be easier, but what is it like talking to them about trying to take some time to check in with whether they're feeling anxious, stressed, and low, anything like that?
Yeah.
Is that well received? Is that difficult?
It's difficult for them to approach occupational health or their line managers, and it's still quite a taboo subject.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think that's what we're trying to do, is to take away that feeling of it being taboo, and please, let's start talking about it. Let's reassess at how we judge mental health, I suppose. When we've actually gone and done the welfare buses and the wellbeing conferences that we are currently doing, that we try and encourage them to understand mental health, to understand stressors that they're going to come across. You hear a lot of I just want a stress-free life, and it's just not possible, and it's not healthy. We want to encourage that actually stress is important to have, because that gives us that flight or fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Feeling that we ultimately need within our job, but to have it in healthy bursts, and then know how to have some downtime. There isn't such a thing as a stress-free.
No,
stress
Absolutely.
yourself. We just
Yeah.
want to make that manageable. And I can only talk from a personal experience, but things have changed over the last 20 years that I've worked for Staffordshire Police, that and that's what I mean about changing that culture. Is I think changing people's perception of what mental health is, how they can help themselves, and I think a lot of that is that let's not wait for people to do it for you. Massively preventative tool that we want to try and say to people, we want to give you the tools to prevent you becoming that stressed or unhappy, that your next port of call is to go to occupational health or go to your GP.
Absolutely.
So it was really nice to hear the other speakers talk about wanting this preventative measure to stop things becoming so bad that you are unwell.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've noticed that, Staffordshire Police are very good at using the app and very good at accepting help from therapists. I mean, we have more acceptance from police officers than in other areas. It's interesting, which we weren't expecting. So they are, when a therapist reaches out, a lot of the times they might not get a response, but with police officers, they do seem to get a positive response and then to engage in that initial discussion. That's good.
I think the Thrive tool gives them that that ability to be able to have a look at how their day was, and then to have the privacy.
I think that's what's important to them.
Somebody who has absolutely nothing to do with
their
work,
yeah,
and can see it from a completely different perspective, and that's how I talk to a lot of staff to say that yes, we can signpost you to these to different areas. We want you to talk to your line manager, and so that they understand what is going on. We want you to go to occupational health and receive the help and treatment that we can possibly give you. Yet, you may feel that you need to go and speak to your GP. But what I really like is them to start to talk to themselves, and that at the end of whatever day it is they've had, is to be able to take 10-20 minutes out of their day and actually ask some questions. Actually, how is your day been? And have a complete understanding of, actually, I didn't realize I felt like this until I'm sat here asking the questions that would be asked of me if I went to occupational health or my GP. And actually, here's some tools for you
to do that yourself.
The
Absolutely.
difference we have as police officers, majoritively, to be fair, and police staff, is that it's very unlikely that we will go home and tell whoever we have at home.
Yeah, you can. There's confidentiality and all sorts of things. That's not
It just probably doesn't turn out that way. And I think if we're trying to change how supervision work, it's just a simple question: are you okay?
Yeah. Which is, and you have to sort of work with managers to be able to sort of ask that question. I think we're going to stop the conversation there because we've overrun quite a bit, and I do want to give people a break.
I told you to talk.
That's okay. No, it's not. I think everybody's been very engaged, but I am conscious that we need to give people a break. So we're going to do that, and we're going to give a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back. We may have some questions, but I think we might press on with the next section. And we'll save the questions for the end if there's any. So I think what we'll do now is people can go for a break, 10-minute break, come back at 20 to 11. And in the meantime, for whoever wants to stay, Kaylin will be doing a brief session of meditation and mindfulness. So she'll be leading that. So yeah, and if you want to pop any questions for the panel, do that during this time. But yeah, everybody go and have a break and join in the session. Even if after you've had a break and you come back 5 minutes in, you can join in the session at any point. Kaylin, I'll hand over to you.
Great, thanks so much, Andreas. As Andreas said, we're quite keen just to do sort of a practical exercise with you. So for those of you that want to go off and grab something to drink or whatever the case might be, please feel free to join in when you get back. So if you do want to join in the mindfulness session and you want to turn your camera off, you're more than welcome to do so. I'm going to turn my camera off if that's okay, just so that there are no distractions and you can really just concentrate on my voice. I'm going to just pop a link to a YouTube clip into the chat now. So feel free to open this link in your browser. And as we're going through the meditation session, for you just to listen to it in the background, it's just the sound of a river and it complements the session really nicely. So feel free to open that up. Great, hopefully that's come through now. I'll just give everyone a moment to do so. Great, so hopefully you've got that playing in the background if you're joining the session. So make sure that you're sitting in a comfortable place and that there are no distractions around you. We'll start with a small breathing exercise shortly, just to take your attention inwards and slow down your heart rate. And then I'm going to take you on a little journey somewhere, and hopefully this will really help you to relax. So let your eyes close and bring your attention to your body. Notice the sensation of your feet touching the floor, your legs on the chair. Are your thighs and your calves relaxed? Let them be still and in a comfortable position. Bring your attention to your belly. Breathe deeply into it, rising on the inhale and falling on the exhale. Let it be soft and relaxed. Are your shoulders in a neutral position? Roll your shoulders back and down away from your neck. Are your collarbones nice and broad? Let your arms hang down beside you. Are your hands in a comfortable position? And are your fingers nice and relaxed? Bring your attention to your head. Is your neck long? Are you sitting with your spine straight in your chair and your head over your torso? Is your jaw nice and relaxed? Feel your tongue on the top of your palate of your mouth. Is your face relaxed? Are your eyebrows in a neutral position? We'll do 3 sets of breathing now. You'll breathe in for 3, hold for 3, breathe out for 3, and then hold for 3. Imagine that you're drawing a square in your mind as we do this. So let's begin. Breathe in for 1, 2, 3. Hold for 1, 2, 3. Breathe out for 1, 2, 3. And hold for 1, 2, 3. Breathe in for 1, 2, 3. Hold for 1, 2, 3. Breathe out for 1, 2, 3. And hold for 1, 2, 3. Let's do this one more time. Breathe in for 1, 2, 3. Hold for 1, 2, 3. Breathe out for 1, 2, 3. And hold for 1, 2, 3. Bring your breath back to its natural rhythm now. Just sit here in the stillness or with the sound of the river in the background, keeping your attention on your breath and observing the sensations in your body. If a thought pops into your mind, that's absolutely fine. Observe that thought. Don't identify with it and let it pass. Now let me guide you on a small journey. You're standing on the bank of a river. You hear the continuous rushing sound of water as it rapidly flows downstream. The uneven earth can be felt beneath the soles of your feet as the tips of the grass gently brush against your toes. You look down at the stream and watch the water flowing by at a steady pace. The rapids twisting and turning as they meander through the soft earth and erode the hard rock, making way to eventually join with the sea. Beside you, there are trees, tall and majestic. They must have been there for hundreds of years. Their long branches gently sway as a breeze blows through them, rustling the leaves. As the breeze reaches you, it gently caresses your cheeks. You take a deep breath in. The temperature feels just right. The sun has warmed up the earth beneath your feet. The breeze cools the air around you. You decide to go closer to the stream, curious to feel the temperature of the water. As you dip your toes into the stream, you feel the water brush your skin. It's cold, sending shivers up your spine and waking you up. You take your toes back out the stream and place them on the warm earth, taking a moment to enjoy the tingling sensation in your foot. You decide to make your way downstream, paying attention to each step you take. The earth beneath you feeling different at every step, sometimes soft, sometimes uneven, sometimes dry and rocky. As you keep walking, the river gets wider and the flow of the stream gets slower. Day starts turning into night as the sun moves across the sky and the moon rises to lighten your path with a silver light. The endless number of stars reflected on the water of the river. You feel at ease. You have nowhere to be and nothing to do. You continue to follow the river as night turns into day. The river is getting wider and wider. The landscape around you is becoming flatter and more even. The trees are starting to turn into bushes, and the bushes are starting to turn into fields. You pay attention to the changing landscape around you, change that happens over time and change that happens naturally. Each change makes you more curious about the next one, accepting how it unravels in front of you. A continuous journey of discovery. You reach the mouth of the river, the widest point, where the water meets the sea and they become one, seamlessly integrating into one another, having always belonged together. You feel a sense of comfort and peace. This is not the end of a journey, but the beginning of a new one. When we learn to accept change within ourselves and our surroundings, we start to appreciate each moment as it is, learning new things as we are ever evolving. Let's stay in the moment for a while longer with our eyes closed, focusing on our breathing and the sound of the river if you have it playing in the background. Now, slowly start to bring your attention back to me. Start by wiggling your toes, wiggling your legs, rolling those shoulders back again, wiggling your fingers and moving your arms as you start to open your eyes and come back to the present moment. Great. So for those of you that joined in that session, I hope that you found that relaxing and just gave you a few moments just to breathe and just relax in your day. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Andreas, I'll pass back over to you.
Thank you, Kaylin. I found it relaxing, so thank you for that. So yeah, I think we'll give a few minutes for people to come back. I think we'll give it.
That was so peaceful. Thank you.
That's a pleasure.
It was, yeah, no, it was good. just give 3 more minutes, and I think when we come back, I'll pass on to Aaron, who's going to give us a preview of the new technology and what we're working towards and why. Just so, I mean, some of you may be aware that we are kind of rebuilding the whole of the app from the ground up. And we're close to finishing the work. We're quite advanced, but we wanted to give everybody a preview. The emphasis, or the thing that gave us the motivation to redesign it, was basically feedback from our users. So one of the key things was the accessibility features, and it was very difficult to implement with our previous technology. So we have to redo it so that it's more agile, more responsive, and is able to support a large range of accessibility functions. So, for example, in the new one, you'll be able to change the font size, have voice narration for every word on the screen, subtitles in every session, that, you know, being able to sort of have high contrast, a night mode, being able to use it in landscape mode, and one of the most requested features, which is being able to sort of use it. Some of the sessions are pure audio, like the exercise that Kaylin just did with us. So some people were requesting to be able to just use that on its own, you know, switching everything off and being able to sort of do that. So I think without further ado, I'll hand over to Aaron, who's our head of development. Aaron, do you want to take it away for a quick demo? I'll stop sharing so you can.
Thanks a lot. Yep, I'll just share the screen 1 second. Yep, so hopefully you can hear me and see the screen. So I'll move all this out of the way. There we go. Yeah, so thanks for inviting me to this is my first coffee morning and giving me the opportunity to update you on the progress with the new Thrive app. So it's always nice to get at the development cave and see new people, albeit virtually. So yeah, anyway, I'll introduce myself quickly. So I'm Aaron Jenkins. I'm head of development at Thrive, as Andreas has mentioned. So I'm responsible for the sort of scheduling, planning and general organisation side of the development team, and also try to ensure good communication between the developers and all the other departments at Thrive now, of which there are many. So outgoing comms about what we're doing now and next, so that can be passed on. And then also dealing with the incoming requests and suggestions from our users and our clients and partners as well. So I was invited to this coffee morning to just give you a sneak preview of the new version of our Thrive app that is coming sometime next year. So I'll try not to talk in acronyms as I'm a developer, but if there is something that doesn't make sense, just shout out and I'll try and catch it. So for context, a little bit of background. So the current version of our app was built with something called Unity, which is an app development tool. This was sort of 7 or 8 years ago now. So it made sense back in the day because this was a cost-effective way of developing the app, and we had developers already experts with it. So one advantage of this tool was that you can produce all the different platform versions very easily. The developers probably won't be saying this, but effectively you choose a drop-down menu, press a button, and it'll spit out the version for that platform, whether it's Android, iOS, Windows, Mac, whatever you need, Xbox. But in recent times, accessibility options have become a crucial part of mobile apps. So phones now support lots of inclusive and useful accessibility features, and also the human interface guidelines to consider. So that's a set of guidelines that promote recognition rather than recall and maintain consistency across the app, flexibility of use, amongst other things. So this becomes a challenge with Unity because Unity is ultimately designed to make sure that all the target platforms are as identical as possible. That's kind of their big selling point. Whereas we want a unique version now to be tailored towards each platform. So if you've got an Android, so for instance, you'd expect your Android app to behave how you'd expect it to on an Android device. So as a quick example, here's the same screen for both Android on the left and iOS on the right. iOS, Apple, has recently switched to this kind of card aesthetic now. So you can see it's now currently very different to Android. But so you can see that the headings are in different places, and Android has these bars at the top and bottom. So it's just designing the same screen for the different platforms. So it works how you'd expect it to work and looks how you'd expect it to look. Also, over the years, because Unity is aiming to be a complete solution to create complex AAA games, it now includes lots of advanced features such as physics solutions, fancy rendering tools, animation systems, advertising, SDKs, whatever. So this is now overkill for our primarily 2D user interface-based app. So all these features, although great, make Unity a really inefficient tool for us to use for our purposes now. So one of our drivers as a company is innovation. So we don't want to carry on and put up with this. We need and want to take action to make sure that our users always have the best experience. So this is why we took the bold step of deciding to rebuild all the core technology of our app. So yeah, now we're using lots of a set of pretty new technologies to power our app. For example, our core technology is written in Go, which isn't really important, but it's an excuse to put a picture of their cool GoPhoto logo up on the screen. But the important bit is that all these technologies, because they're very modern and efficient, so straight away, once we've built the app with these, there's going to be some general improvements across the app. So for example, the app will be much more responsive now. So it'll be running at 120 frames a second rather than 30 frames a second. So practically, this will mean that the drag actions will feel much more responsive and silky smooth, and tapping buttons will be much more will sort of run better as well. So another benefit is that battery usage will be far more efficient. So older devices do not become so hot, and the batteries don't drain so quickly with continued use. So it just becomes more efficient to use. Now the app is completely data driven. So effectively the app is built in a spreadsheet, and you can play the app in a spreadsheet. So you can put your multiple choice question answer in there, and then the results below will change depending on what you've put in that cell. So practically speaking, the result of making it all data driven is that once we have all the assets for an exercise, we can add that exercise now in a matter of hours rather than sort of weeks. And then once it goes through QA, we can push it live without needing to update the app on the store. So this is going to set us up to really accelerate the rollout of new exercises. And I know Andreas is really excited about this because he's got a set of scripts all ready to go for his next set of exercises. So targeted CBT, self-esteem, body image, bereavement, and there's a big list there. I don't want to kind of go off track, but looking forward, this will enable us to set up personalized modules for an individual user, because now we have all these different styles of exercise. So you can set up a personalized set of goals or exercises that are especially relevant for a unique user's situational needs. And then jumping forward again, in time, we now have a machine learning specialist in the research team. So we can explore building the app up so it can make those decisions automatically based on the responses and the actions of the user using the app, which is kind of voodoo really, but it's all going to be very exciting if the app is kind of automatically responding to what you're doing in it, rather than needing manual input. So anyway, back to the very near future. Apart from the general improvements, you basically want to know what exactly are the new things we're going to see in the app when it comes out. So we've already completed work on a raft of accessibility features. That was a big priority for us, as Andreas has said, as we've had various feedback from users about each of these features that I'm going to list out. So first, there's biometric logins. So this is improved security using your hand or your face. So these are sort of work in progress screenshots. So for iPhone 7 style devices with the fingerprint, you've got your Touch ID, and then the brand new devices in more recent years now have the Face ID. So that's all been implemented. So that just makes it much more secure. We've now got a light and dark mode implemented, and you can see the two versions there that are automatically displayed depending upon what you've chosen as your device setting. But a byproduct of this system is that we can support defining of colouring within the app. So whether it's for a brand who wants to make it more brand centric, or even down to user choice that could potentially define their own colouring in the future. Users are now in complete control of the scaling of their font sizes. So you see there we can go from very small up to huge, and that the boxes and screen layout will dynamically adjust to accommodate that. And part of that is also that we now support text to speech. So you can tap areas of the screen and the device reads it out for you just to help again with accessibility. With that, there's finer control over exercises now. So this is used to YouTube style controls where you can pause, rewind and forward 10 seconds by pressing the buttons, or even scrub that timeline at the bottom there to go instantly to exactly where you need to in the exercise. So if there's a knock at the door or the phone rings, then the app will carry on from where you left off, rather than you having to hunt for it again. Those controls can also be accessed via widgets. So now you can control these exercises while the device is locked. So a common request has been where users like to put the exercises on, put it next to their bed and just close their eyes and relax. But no, they'd rather, or they want to lock the device just in case they nod off, so it's still all secure. So we've implemented that feature as well. Another smaller thing perhaps is that when you move between apps, the Thrive app, the Thrive window will be blurred. So again, for improved privacy, if somebody's looking over your shoulder for whatever reason. And then also we've got now dynamic support for both portrait and landscape. So you can hold and use it exactly how you want. So if I start some of these short videos going, you can see here is the Apple version. Of course, Apple being Apple, it's all nice and slick and bouncy when you're moving between portrait and landscape. Whereas over here, you've got the sort of more clean and functional version of Android. And here you can see in this one, during the exercises, it's moving. You rotate the screen, it all sorts itself out. Again, with that video, spoilers for the next slide, is that you can see that there's now subtitling for all the exercises. And we've already been starting with the localization of the app. We know, I think, 5 or 6 languages already out in the store. So again, all those narration subtitles will also be translated, and the voiceovers re-recorded as well in the different languages to go with it. And then this bottom one's the same thing again, but with the just list of exercises, just another quick example. But you can see it's all completely dynamic. You don't have to hunt around for the setting in a menu somewhere. You just turn your device and it happens, which is awesome. Next slide. So there's the narration subtitles. One that we're currently working on now is to set up an offline mode for the app. So content can be downloaded and accessed offline in case you ever find yourself in prison or on a plane. That's probably more relevant to everybody. But yeah, so you can still access it even if you're in airplane mode and carry on. So apart from that offline mode, which has just been started, all those systems are now completed and working in the app. In the new version of the app that's not yet on the store. So yeah, the new version is going to have tons of accessibility features added, which is fantastic. So as well as accessibility, we've also been looking at the UX of the app, which is the user experience.
Aaron, before you go on, we have a question about what are the languages that we're supporting at the moment?
Yeah,
do you remember the list?
Yeah, I'll try and remember off the top of my head. Yeah, so out in the store at the moment is Portuguese, German, Polish. Just out in the last update, a week or two ago, was
Spanish.
Romanian. No, not Spanish yet. Romanian and Dutch. That was it. And then the next version, which is either the end of November or the first week of December, will be Spanish and Welsh. And then in the new year, we've got Chinese coming out as well. And we've had lots of requests for other languages, which we'll start to look at in the new year after those have come out, which are was it French, Italian, Swedish, US English. So there's always always requests for new languages to support. So, but luckily, well, not luckily, as designed and planned, our tools are that we, as soon as we get all the text and voiceover working, it just drops in. It takes a couple of days, and the next language is ready to go out. I guess the issue is it's just time, because each language, there's so much talking in it and so much voiceover that it takes 2 weeks for the QA department to go through it thoroughly. So it's just waiting for that cycle to happen. Cool. So UX. So we've now got a UI UX expert. So that's Martin on the left. You can see he's very friendly, and he's taking the opportunity to redesign some of the core systems of the app and make them much more intuitive. So for example, the journal at the moment is currently designing. So this is going to become the heart of the app. So when you first boot or load up the app, this is where you'll drop in, and everything else, all the other features of the app will flow from there. So ultimately it takes the form of a calendar, excuse me, and this holds a record of what you've done and achieved in the past, but also it's going to look into the future, goals that you should be achieving that are put into your calendar, like there's a CBT exercise that asks you to repeat something every day and come back in a week. So that will be added to this calendar, just so you don't have to remember all that sort of stuff or write it down yourself. But in the future, in following versions, we'd look to expand that to connect it to sort of real world events that are happening. So whether that's therapist appointments or Thrive activities related to various wellbeing days, research opportunities, anything like that. So talking of external content, as the new app is now data driven and very dynamic, we're going to look at making the external materials available in the app as well for ease of use. So for example, the Thriving 5 videos that have been created, they'll be viewed from within this app. But we've also built that feature in such a way that we're going to implement that into the current Unity app as well. So that's the development cycle of that is almost at an end now. So that'll go into QA and hopefully it'll either be out in the next version in December or just after Christmas.
Just a point of clarity there. So this is a feature that is coming in the new app, but it's also what Aaron just said is that we will have all the content that we produce, that our business psychology department is produced, available within the Thrive app as well, easily accessible.
Yeah, cool. So again, looking into the future. So once everything's now data driven, it doesn't just stop at the Thriving 5 videos. We can pull in blogs or social media posts or any other materials from all the other departments. So it's now not just developers making the content for the app, but now we can include all the other awesome work from all the other clever people in our other departments. So once you're starting to pull in all these updates and put it into the calendar, then you can just envision that the whole app is now going to become much more dynamic and engaging. So potentially, every day there could include a new piece of content. So yeah, it should. I mean, all that stuff is then building up to improve like engagement in the app and retention. If things are happening, new things happening all the time. So that should be a really sort of powerful update. Yeah, so that's kind of I know time's tight. So that was a quick preview of what's coming next year with the new version of the app.
Thanks very much, Aaron. So I think we have something like 5 minutes for any questions that we may have from the audience for our panelists or even Aaron. So I think keen to open up for questions if we have any. I haven't seen any. Have you seen any, Kaylin, coming through?
No, I haven't seen any. The only one was the one relating to languages, which Aaron
which we covered.
Yeah.
I think we'll give a little bit of time if people want to sort of think about any questions. I mean, from my part, while we see if we get any questions or not, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining. I think I'll just do a quick recap of what we've been talking about. So we talked about the challenges we faced through the pandemic and now adapting to the post-pandemic environment. I think the pandemic has had considerable impact on mental well-being, and it's more important than ever to have the right tools in place for our workforce to remain well through these challenging times. Once we have them in place, it's important, as we heard from our speakers, and I think we see from all the partners that we have, that we have to sort of do work to keep people engaged with them. So I usually use the gym membership kind of comparison, so it's no good for providing gym memberships for all staff if nobody goes to the gym, but it's also no good to blame the workforce for struggling to get to the gym, because I think we all struggle to get to the gym. It's also no good to stop supplying gym memberships because nobody goes. I think that just compounds the problem. It makes it more inaccessible. I think good engagement requires action from the employer, and we heard from panelists that sustained efforts that they has to be made to keep promoting and keep engaging staff. It's a hard job, but it's one that pays off if you do it. And we have our relationship management team and our business psychology team at your service to sort of do those activities that will keep the engagement going. It's also important to provide the right tools in the right way, which is why we have redeveloped the app from the ground up, looking at all the feedback that we've had from users to reduce that access to that barrier to access, and increase the support for those features that that improve accessibility in general. We have the possibility for people to join the, so if you want to sort of take a look at the early versions of the app, you can scan that QR code that I put on the screen now and join, and basically you'll be signed up to sort of look at the releases as we make them, and we'll be very happy to hear your feedback. We will be updating the app very frequently until we release it. So when the beta version is ready, you'll be able to sort of, just access it and obviously even show it to your workforce. It'll be from your phone if you signed up, to sort of take a look at it and see what you think and see what other people at your workplace think. And I don't think have we had any questions?
Yeah, so Andreas, we have had one targeted at Despina. So just saying, or just asking how you've promoted Thrive throughout your workforce.
Yeah, no worries. For us, it's been really important as a people team that we're all using it. We all know what it's used for, and that it feeds into every conversation that we have about physical and mental health. We've also got, Claire, over 70 mental health first aiders across the UK that are being trained as super users. And again, the terminology that we're using, a preventative tool. We're also sharing stories from top to bottom, really, from our CEO around how Thrive has been useful and supportive in meditation, in kind of CBT therapy, in playing a nice game if you want to. I think one of the key things is keep the conversation going. And I think for us, we're looking at lunch and learn sessions every week, which will take something from the app and introduce that to the organisation. But for us, it's very much people team living and breathing it, champions across the organisation, and really embedding that into one-to-ones, mid-year reviews, annual appraisals, reference it on your wellness action plans. One of the other things that we did, Claire, is we worked with Mind, and we've got a Managing Mental Health at Work e-learning, which talks about the use of wellness action plans and support tools, and we've embedded Thrive into that information as well. So it's every touch point that you can get it in there and really reference it, and as that preventative tool. It's about feeling and keeping fit and healthy. And just give us an email if you want to link up more about it.
I think, Claire, you have your hand up.
Yeah, it was, I couldn't get onto the Q&A, so I put it onto the chat, and that's obviously where it's come from. Despina, I'd love to talk to you more. I'm chomping at the bit because I've got so much to say, and obviously this was only for a few hours, but the lunch and learn and champion, I really would like your help in how I can implement that within our workforce, because I think it is key about constantly talking about it. We've actually just ordered some mouse mats, and I just thought I'd share that with you, because when you're talking a lot about people working from home, then that's an amazing thing to have sat there next to them constantly in their face. So and that came from an idea from one of our wellbeing meetings, which was grand. And when we talk about stress balls, our police officers love a good stress ball. So I'm going to see if perhaps we could do something like that. So rather than throw them about, they can squeeze them and have a QR code on the stress ball, maybe.
That's a good idea.
But yeah, it's just really, I would love to have yours and Nick's email to try and get an understanding from different areas that then I can then take back, and show our senior leaders that this is such a fantastic tool to have. I think it will give our staff a lot of motivation to look after themselves and feel in control, I think.
Very good. I think I wasn't showing the QR code, but I think it's showing now. So I hope people had the opportunity. Thank you, Nick. So yeah, I mean, I do want to thank our excellent panelists that have been fantastic and have helped me a lot. So I very much appreciate. So Nick from Snow, Despina from the NMC, and Claire from Staffordshire Police. And thanks to all of you for your participation and the polls and everything else, and for a wonderful coffee morning. Thank you all very, very much. I shall see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks
Take
all.
care.
Take care. Bye.
Hi, everyone.
Have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye.